After a deadly high-speed crash in Ybor City last weekend, could this have been prevented? One idea out there is closing roads to prevent another tragedy. Tampa Bay residents are asking many questions after 4 people were killed and 13 injured. I'm Matthew Petty, and ahead this hour on Florida Matters, live and local, we'll talk about the latest in the case against the accused driver and your ideas on prevention. And more than 4 million Floridians are caring for a family member or friend struggling with old age, health issues or mental challenges. The stresses are enormous. Are you one of them? What challenges are you facing and what help have you found? Call 813-755-6562 and let us know how family caregiving is part of your life. Or email FloridaMatters at WUSF.org. And that chill in the air means it's hockey season, even in Florida. We'll talk about the Lightning and tackle some football too. This and your calls and emails on Florida Matters live and local. First, these headlines.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. With the federal government shutdown over, full SNAP food benefits are being restored. But NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports anxiety over the funding pause are expected to linger.
Jacqueline Giamona and her 2 kids rely on SNAP for nearly all their groceries, and the past 2 weeks without it were tough. She says depriving low-income people of a necessity like food was an abuse of power.
People are going to distrust the government, and I think people are going to be really angry about it for a long time.
Advocate Crystal Fitzsimons with the Food Research and Action Center would like Congress to prevent a repeat.
It does make me nervous that this could be used as a negotiating tactic again.
She and others do see one positive. They say all the attention has shown just how vital SNAP is for so many people. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Washington.
The Eiffel Tower is lit in France's colors, blue, white, and red, as the country observes the 10th anniversary of terrorist attacks in Paris. Commemorations are being held at the sites where a group of ISIS gunmen and suicide bombers targeted crowds at the Bataclan Concert Hall, the stadium, and nearby cafes. 132 people died, hundreds were injured. Tributes include a new memorial garden across City Hall. On Wednesday night, a day after Iraqis voted in parliamentary elections, initial results are in. The coalition led by the country's current prime minister has won the most seats. Here's Jane Araf with more.
Iraq's election commission announced that a political bloc led by Prime Minister Mohammed Shia Sudani won the most seats. But in the Iraqi system, whoever can form the biggest coalition after voting chooses the prime minister. So Sudani will have to persuade other parties to join him to be able to keep the job. Sudani thanked the Iraqi people for his election win. And he called on political parties to put the country's interests before their own. Influential Shia leader Muqtada Sadr, whose movement gained the biggest number of seats in the last parliament, boycotted this election. For NPR News, I'm Jane Araf in Amman.
Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt has taken the rare step of commuting the sentence of a death row inmate shortly before he was to be executed by lethal injection this morning. A state parole board had recommended the Republican governor spare Tremaine Wood's life. Wood was convicted for his role in the 2002 death of a 19-year-old man during a botched robbery. He maintains his brother, who died serving a life sentence in prison, killed Ronnie Whiff, a migrant farm worker from Montana. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is down 433 points, or nearly 1% at 47,819. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. The driver accused of crashing into an Ybor City nightclub over the weekend, killing 4 people, will continue to be held without bond. 22-year-old Silas Sampson appeared in Hillsborough County Court this morning for a pretrial hearing. Sampson was fleeing law enforcement for allegedly speeding and reckless driving early Saturday when he plowed into the patio of Bradley's on 7th. 4 people were killed, at least 13 injured. Sampson is facing multiple charges, including 4 counts of vehicular homicide. A date for a next hearing has not yet been set. We'll have an update on the case on Florida Matters Live and Local coming up next. Nearly 700 bicycle-related accidents have happened in Pinellas County so far this year. The sheriff's office says that's in part because some cyclists run red lights and stop signs. They even took to YouTube with their message.
Stop means stop. On the road, on the trail, every time.
Pinellas would like to get to the point where there are no serious injuries or crashes for anyone using its roads and bike paths, and that means better planning. Florida Matters Live and Local recently spoke with Kyle Simpson, a planner with the county, to see how they're trying to achieve that.
People are human and we all make mistakes. And so we need to design a transportation system that allows for someone to make a minor mistake and that mistake not be a serious injury or fatal mistake.
Simpson also encourages newer cyclists not to bike on busier roads. Single game tickets for the Tampa Bay Rays 2026 season go on sale to the public at 2 p.m. today. Since Tropicana Field is not exactly ready to open to the public just yet, interested fans will be able to check out seating options through an interactive virtual tour online instead. The Rays' home opener is set. It is against the Chicago Cubs, and it is scheduled for April the 6th. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
On the Bay Blend podcast, we highlight things to do in the Tampa Bay area you might not even know about, like when I went to Rustic Steel Academy to try my talents at welding.
Do you think I have a future as a welder if I wanted to change career paths?
I think I would not quit your day job yet.
Well, at least he was honest. On the Bay Blend podcast, we give you the news and some fun in your own community. That's the Bay Blend from WUSF, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or online at WUSF.org.
This is Florida Matters Live and Local. We're broadcasting live from the Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WSF in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, Saturday morning around 1 a.m., a speeding Toyota Camry crashed into Bradley's, a popular nightclub in historic Ybor City. 4 people died. Marlon Anthony Collins of Bartow, Lisa Shalisha Sherelle Johnson of Winter Haven, Sherman Jones of Tampa, and Christina Maria Richards, who was visiting from Ohio. 13 more were injured. Silas Sampson, the driver, has been charged with vehicular homicide, among other charges, and court records say he was driving at 77 miles per hour on the narrow brick street when his car hit patrons outside the club. Here's Howard Hopkins, who witnessed the crash, talking with Fox 13 Tampa Bay.
Turned around, and here comes the car. Jumps the curb, hits the corner of the building, then comes into Bradley's patio. Tables went everywhere, chairs went everywhere, some bodies went everywhere. It was pretty bad.
So now there are calls from some in the community to close 7th Avenue to cars at peak nightlife hours, something the city of Tampa actually did from 1995 to 2002. In a recent news conference, though, Mayor Jane Castor said open streets are safer. She said it keeps people from loitering around businesses that they don't intend to support. City Councilman Alan Clendenin had a slightly different tone, saying, quote, all options must be on the table, whether that means expanding street closures, increasing police presence, or redesigning high-traffic areas for pedestrian safety. Business owner Jeffrey Dupree spoke to WSF. He said his only concern with street closures would be how he receives deliveries. Ultimately, he says he doesn't think closing 7th Avenue would have a negative impact on businesses because people typically park and walk around the area.
From a business standpoint, having fewer vehicles coming through 7th Avenue is probably unlikely to have a negative impact on our business specifically, just because we're fairly close to the Central Ybor parking garage, which we get a lot of people are coming. If they're coming to see us, that's generally where you're going to park because it's the closest and it's not very far away.
So Dupree also said he doesn't know if this is a pedestrian safety issue as much as a street racing issue. Well, for more on this unfolding story, we're joined by WSF's Mark Schreiner and Nancy Guan. Mark and Nancy, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Nancy,
Thank you.
I want to start with you. You were at a court hearing this morning for the accused driver, 22-year-old Silas Sampson. What happened in court this morning?
Yeah, so this morning's hearing was a pretrial detention hearing. That's where the judge determined that Silas Sampson will continue to be held without bond, meaning he'll remain in jail while he waits for trial.
And what is he actually charged with? Because there's quite a raft of charges there.
Yeah, so Sampson is facing multiple charges as of now, including 4 counts of vehicular homicide and 4 counts of aggravated fleeing to elude. Yesterday, the Florida Highway Patrol filed 6 more counts, but dropped 2 today in court. They said it was due to some confusion between another crash victim at the hospital. So he's facing a total of 12 counts as of now, but he could be charged with more. The Florida Highway Patrol is waiting for the results of a toxicology report that they ordered because they believe that Sampson was under the influence of alcohol when he crashed.
Right. Now, what do we actually know about Sampson? Like, was he in court for this hearing this morning?
He was there this morning. We know that he's 22 years old. He's from Dade City in Pasco County. According to court records, prior to Saturday's incident, Sampson was cited before for speeding. So he was going 99 miles per hour at an area with a 70 mile per hour speed limit. During the hearing today, his public defender also mentioned he has 1 prior misdemeanor involving a firearm, but no felony record.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about the crash in Ybor City, the deadly crash in Ybor City over the weekend. Want to hear what you think. Are you in favor of closing 7th Avenue? Have some concerns about safety? Give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Just a note of clarification too. I mentioned that the closure of 7th Avenue had ended in 2002, but it was actually 2005. Who else was in court? So Sampson was there. Were there some family members of the folks who were injured and killed in the crash?
Yes, so there were family members of the driver, Silas Sampson, as well as several family members or people who knew the victims of the crash. Things did get a bit emotional after the hearing ended, but we weren't able to talk to either parties.
Mark, I wonder if you could walk us through the timeline of what happened Friday night, because this all unfolded fairly quickly.
Yeah, early Saturday morning, Matt, just about 7 minutes is, according to authorities, how long everything took. The chase started at 12:39 when a Tampa Police Department air unit saw Sampson's silver Camry driving in a reckless and erratic manner, according to police, on I-275. That air unit let the ground units know. So you had Tampa
when you say
police,
an air unit, you're talking about helicopter.
Helicopter, yeah. But the helicopter let officers on the ground from both Tampa Police as well as Florida Highway Patrol that they saw this suspect who they believed was street racing on the expressway. Those 3 vehicles began a pursuit. The pursuit did not last long. As I said, the whole thing was just under 7 minutes. The car exited 275, began heading towards Nebraska Avenue. In the area near Pitt and Nebraska, they began what's called a precision immobilization technique, or a pit maneuver.
Right, they sort of try and knock the car so it stops.
Hit him from behind to disable him. It was an unsuccessful move. They have released the video of that maneuver, so you can see what happened. At that point, the vehicle, Sampson, was traveling south on Nebraska Avenue. He made a left turn onto 7th Avenue. If you're familiar with Ybor City, you make that turn from Nebraska onto 7th, you are now in the heart of Ybor City. He was just about 0.4 of a mile from that crash site when they tried the pit maneuver. He made that turn onto 7th. At that point, he's approaching 15th Street. He's going about 100 miles an hour. He collides with a Mazda in an intersection. His car then makes a turn. He ends up going about 77 miles an hour when he mounts the curb and hits the people who are sitting in that outdoor patio area at Bradley's. I believe 2 of them were hits and basically almost killed instantly, unfortunately. 12:46, the pursuit's over.
Yeah, so very short span of time then. Let's go to the phones. We've got Joanna on the line. Joanna, you're on the air. What are you thinking?
I think that years ago they used to close 7th Avenue during the weekends, and I'm not sure exactly why they started opening it again, but I feel like for the weekend at least they should close the road.
Yeah, Joanna, is this an area that you like to frequent? Like, do you go hang out in Ybor City of a weekend evening?
Not particularly, but I'm very close to the area, so I do frequent Ybor City, and it's just one of those things that, you can be there on a Friday night unexpectedly and something like this happens when you can try to do things to prevent it, such as closing the road. They used to do many years ago.
Yeah. Joanna, thank you so much for your call. Really appreciate that. Well, let's talk about that, Mark. I mean, those road closures are kind of in play. They've been talking about it. There's a petition circulating on change.org asking for it. And 30 years ago, the city did close 7th Avenue to car traffic. Supporters argued more foot traffic would benefit businesses in the area. That all ended in 2005. The party atmosphere didn't stop, though, and the crowds got younger. And businesses have been split over the value of opening up the road again. We did hear from a business owner a little bit earlier, and now, of course, this debate centres on a tragedy. The Community Redevelopment Agency, the city's Community Redevelopment Agency, met this morning. It's the second public meeting for city officials since the crash. Let's just hear a little bit from that. Here's Trevor Rosine. Trevor Rosine was one of the folks who spoke in the beginning of the morning's meeting during the public comment, calling for a focus on pedestrian safety in Ybor.
I'm not asking you to close 7th Ave today. I'm asking you to start a community-driven process. After gathering input, I urge you to consider a timed or pilot closure during high-risk hours so we can evaluate real-world safety impact, business impact, and pedestrian flow before making long-term decisions. We have studied this before, but times have absolutely changed.
And we also heard from Shirley Brickens, I should say. She spoke as well. Her cousin was one of those killed in the crash on Saturday morning.
There was a time that no one was able to park on 7th Avenue, period. If you all could just put up barricades and cruisers so that there is no way that people can just fly through the way that they do and hurt other people and their family members. It's not fair.
That there, Shirley Brickens, whose cousin was killed in the crash in Ybor City Saturday morning, speaking at the CRA meeting for Tampa City Council this morning. So, I mean, that road closure has been, it was closed for a time, right? So what was the rationale behind opening up again?
The thing became, when the closure started first back in the mid to late 90s, the street became the party. And that was the phrase that I've been seeing. You've got drink specials, you've got a younger party crowd, you've got noise, the higher-end businesses wanted out. So the concern becomes that when you close it down, A, as I said, the street becomes the party, and B, what Mayor Castor continues to push at is the idea that it prevents this congregation of people that are coming with no intent to use the bars, visit the restaurants, go into the clubs. At the same time, you're penning people in. Mm-hmm. And if there is a vehicle that, unfortunately comes this way, or as we saw last year around Halloween in Ybor City, where we did have a mass shooting, you've penned people in and they don't have that escape route as easily per se. I definitely think that it's going to be a very difficult conversation because there's very valid points on both sides of this.
Yeah, just in the last few seconds we have here, Nancy, what are you watching for next in this court case, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, watching for the next date for the next hearing. I spoke with the state attorney's office today, and they said, the next thing would probably be the arraignment.
Mm-hmm. Also, probably really quick, Matt, the toxicology report to see what additional charges get filed.
Yeah, indeed. So lots to pay attention to there. Talking with WUSF's Mark Schreiner and Nancy Guan about last weekend's deadly crash in Ybor City and calls to improve safety. You can find more details about the story Nancy and Mark's reporting on WUSF.org. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, about 1 in 4 adults in Florida are caring for a loved one. We'll talk about the challenges they face and the help that's out there for family caregivers. You can give us a call on Florida Matters, live and local. Much more to come after this. Stay with us.
Support for the Zest podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, with a new location now open on Kennedy Boulevard east of Habana Avenue in Tampa, offering lunch and learn events and featuring the Wellness Kitchen, where design meets well-being. Learn more and see the schedule at adelaide.com.
Hi, it's Steve Inskeep with an easy way to support this station. Donate a car that you don't need anymore. It's free to you and could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. Thanks.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. Emails released by congressional Democrats show convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name. With Congress back in session, will the House of Representatives move forward with a bill to compel the release of more Epstein files? That's next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Nearly 4.5 million adults in Florida are caring for a family member or friend with complex medical issues or disabilities. That's about 1 in 4 adults in Florida. And chances are, if you're not a caregiver yourself, you probably know someone who is. A new report from AARP digs into the state-by-state numbers of family caregivers and details some of the challenges they face. And if you've done this sort of care, you know financial issues and emotional strain are at the top of that list. Nearly 1/3 of family caregivers in our state said they have difficulty taking care of their own health and caring for the person in need. If this sounds like you and your family, give us a call and tell us about your experience, the challenges, and maybe what help you've found out there. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also leave a message or email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. We're joined by Lauren Klinger, author of Learn From My Mistakes, a Substack newsletter about her experience caring for her father while raising a family. Lauren, thanks for coming back. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Also with us is Jason Resendez, CEO of the National Alliance for Caregiving. Jason, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And Mary Anna Antoldi with the Senior Issues Lobby Group, AARP. Mary Anna, thank you as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Marianne, I want to start with you. According to this report, nearly 4.5 million Floridians are taking care of a loved one. That's a lot of people. I mean, does that kind of make sense since we have a pretty big elderly population here in Florida?
It does make quite a lot of sense. So the Caregiving in the U.S. report is actually the most comprehensive report on American family caregiving landscape, which was conducted by both AARP and the National Alliance for Caregiving. Unfortunately, this report confirmed what AARP has long known, that America's caregivers are in crisis. We have released state-by-state caregiving data, and it confirms that 4.451 million adults in Florida are caregivers. That's 24% of the adult population in the state. Mm-hmm. And nationally, the number has jumped of overall caregivers by 45% just in the past decade. So up from 43 million 10 years ago. They're taking on everything from bathing and meal prep to managing medication and arranging transportation for their loved ones. And this data is showing that more Americans than ever before are in that caregiving situation.
Jason, most folks in the survey are caring for an adult, 15% caring for a child under 18 with disabilities or complex medical needs. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the importance of kind of bringing that population into this survey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We are really adamant that care happens on a spectrum, right? Sort of from the moment we take our first breath to the moment we take our last, care is a constant in our lives, whether you're providing care for a child with complex medical needs or an ailing parent with a serious illness. Care across the board is just a lot harder than it needs to be in states like Florida and nationally. So it's really important for us to use this data to bring visibility to Americans who are providing care, whether those are parents of children with complex medical needs, or again, you're caring for an older adult living with dementia or other age-related challenges. Having this data helps us to tailor solutions for family caregivers navigating those unique care trajectories.
We are going to talk about solutions, but Lauren, I want to bring you into this conversation. A quarter of caregivers are in this sandwich generation. They're caring for a child under 18 and caring for adult family members too. Can you kind of explain your situation, how you found yourself in that sandwich of care?
Yeah, so I'm an only child, and my parents were a little bit older than average, but I lost my mom when I was just 24. She died very suddenly of cancer. She was diagnosed, and then 3 weeks later, she was gone. And so my dad was on his own. I was in graduate school in Pennsylvania, and then I made the choice to come home. I was like, I need to come home to Florida, be closer to my dad. And he did well for a few years. He kept up with his doctor's appointments and all of that, and he was active, he had friends. And then it just slowly tapered off. He was depressed, he began to withdraw, and he was still making it to his appointments, but everything was a little harder. And I started slowly taking things on, driving him to appointments, keeping track of medications, picking things up for him at Publix, that kind of thing. And then those responsibilities for me just grew and grew. And he got a couple tough diagnoses. He had congestive heart failure. He had stage 4 kidney disease. He became less and less active. And then he was in and out of rehabs and hospitals and nursing homes. And it was infections and all kinds of compounding issues. And then I had my first baby in 2019, December of 2019, which was a perilous time, as you know, with COVID-19. And then my dad got much more ill at the beginning of 2020, and then he died in early 2021. So I was doing my most intensive caregiving when I had also a newborn.
Yeah, so some real peaks and valleys there, I'm sure. I'm interested to kind of explore that a bit because, I mean, oftentimes when you have your first kid, you're like you're leaning on your parents a lot and saying, "Hey, would you mind watching them?" And of course, parents who want to be involved in their grandkids' lives, they love it oftentimes, but not having that resource as well must have been a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I couldn't, not having my mom, I couldn't call and say, is this normal or was I like this? And that was tough. I leaned a lot on my mom's sisters who live, again, out of state. So I had emotional support, but they weren't here.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my in-laws were really helpful at that time. But I wished I could drop the kid off at my dad's or even just I wish I now had memories of my dad playing with my son. He held him a couple of times, but it was during COVID, so I was wary of bringing a newborn around my dad. The last thing I wanted to do was get my dad sick. So it was tough, yeah.
Yeah, real kind of maelstrom of things to deal with there. We're talking with Lauren Klinger, author of Learn From My Mistakes. It's a Substack newsletter about caregiving. Also with us, Jason Resendez, CEO of the National Alliance for Caregiving, and Mary Anna Antoldi, Associate State Director of Communications for AARP. And if you're caring for a friend or family member, what challenges have you faced? Where have you found help? You can talk to us about it, 813-755-6562. Send an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Mary Anna, you just briefly before we go to a break, you mentioned some of the challenges that caregivers find themselves facing. I mean, it can be a bit of a humbling experience, right? Sort of learning to do some of these challenging physical tasks for a loved one, someone you're caring for.
Yes, absolutely. This survey reveals that caregivers are working. They're essentially working a second full-time job taking care of their loved ones in addition. And a lot of times they don't receive the training that they need to perform the medical tasks, to distribute the medications to their loved ones that they have to do on a daily basis. This report, just some stats, this report reveals that 80% of caregivers are paying out of their own pocket to help meet the needs of their loved ones. That averages to about $7,200 a year out of Floridians' pockets, and that is a lot of money. 59% of our state's caregivers are also working full or part-time jobs on top of their caregiving responsibilities, requiring them to reduce work hours or leave the workforce entirely due to their caregiving responsibilities. This jeopardizes their own long-term financial stability.
Yeah.
And 54% of these caregivers report financial setbacks. A lot of times they're taking on debt. They have to drain their own savings accounts, or it can even get as bad as they're struggling to afford their food or medicine.
Yeah, a lot of challenges there. We're talking about the challenges of caregiving, the help that's out there. Want to hear from you too. If you have a personal experience with caregiving, give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Stay with us on Florida Matters Live and Local. The conversation continues in just a moment.
The Tony Award-winning musical about the survival of the human spirit, Les Miserables, is at Straz Center in Tampa, December 10th through December 14th. Show details and tickets at strazcenter.org.
Hope runs free at the Dogs Inc. campus in Palmetto, Florida. There, dogs with big dreams learn to lead, support, and heal. Wagging tails, warm hearts. You can see their magic when you take a tour. Plan your next visit at dogsinc.org.
On the next Fresh Air, Ethan Hawke. He's starring in 2 new movies, Blue Moon about lyricist Lorenz Hart and the horror movie Black Phone 2. In the streaming series The Lowdown, he's a small-time investigative journalist constantly getting into trouble. We'll talk about his movies and his life from his years as a teenage film star to today. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. We're talking about the challenges of caregiving and the help that's out there. Nearly 1 in 4 adult Floridians are caring for a loved one with a disability or complex medical needs. Are you caring for a family member or friend? What challenges have you faced? What or who has helped you in your role as a family caregiver? The number is 813-755-6562 if you want to call in, share your story, ask a question of our expert panel. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. That number again, 813-755-6562. With us is Lauren Klinger, the author of Learn From My Mistakes, a Substack newsletter about caregiving. Jason Resendez, CEO of the National Alliance for Caregiving, and Mary Anna Antoldi, Associate State Director of Communications for AARP. Mariana, the AARP report notes financial strain facing caregivers. You kind of went through a bit of a laundry list earlier, but break it down for us. I mean, what are some of the things that folks have to put on hold while they are caregiving?
Yeah, a lot of times caregivers have to just put their own mental health, well-being, and their general lives in home. I know Lauren was talking earlier about being a sandwich generation caregiver. A lot of times sandwich generation caregivers, they're taking care of 2 other individuals. A lot of times they're putting their own personal needs, their own personal finances. They're stepping back from those in order to provide their loved ones with that necessary care. Some of the survey reports that they're seeing significant financial setbacks. Some caregivers are taking on debt. They're draining their savings accounts, and they're struggling to afford food and medicine. And that's why this month and every month, AARP is really calling on Congress and state legislatures to pass the solutions that will save family caregivers the money and time and provide them with more support.
Is there a specific bill out there, Mariana?
Not at the moment, no.
But you'd like to see one?
Yeah, absolutely. We would definitely, that is what we are actively advocating for. We're actively advocating just in some of the financial, since we're talking about finances, we're looking for legislators, state legislators, and federal legislators to provide financial relief through tax credits, reimbursement programs, or other policies that ease that financial strain on unpaid caregivers. And also having a lot of companies provide guaranteed paid sick days and family leave, so caregivers can actually care for their loved ones without risking their job or their paycheck. Yeah. Because as I mentioned before, a lot of times they have to step back and reduce their hours pretty significantly.
Yeah. 813-755-6562 is the number if you want to call in and share your story about caregiving. 813-755-6562. Talking about challenges, some of the help that's out there as well, because there is help. So, Lauren, as a mom who's caring for your parents, what were the financial pressures that you faced?
Oh, there were so many. First of all, have you ever looked how expensive it is to buy like adult diapers and things that go into caring for? They're so expensive. And then not only do you need to buy that stuff if your parent is home, you need a mat to lay them on so that they're changed in a hygienic way. You need
just
those things.
For comparison, like what are you talking about? Like how much would it cost you per pack?
I mean, I'm sure it's more now. This was like 4 years ago that I was buying these things, but double what we would pay for kids diapers. So you think about that expense when you have a baby, but you're not budgeting for that when you're in your early 30s and you're caring for your parent. Sometimes this stuff comes on suddenly, and it's shocking how expensive it can be. And then at one point, my dad was discharged from a rehab facility, and I thought, well, we need maybe some nurses to come by and reacclimate him to being home. And so I said, well, let's cover the first 3 days or so with 24-hour nursing care, and we'll just have like an LPN, a helper come and help him, make a meal and transition between the bed.
Is that what LPN is? What, licensed professional
nurse? It's a nurse, but it's not an RN. So it's it requires like less education, but they're fully capable of helping with ordinary tasks.
Yeah, pretty crucial for some of those tough jobs.
And it can be for wound care, like changing dressing and stuff like that too, that I don't quite, again, what you're talking about with this study, that caregivers aren't necessarily trained for these more medical tasks. But so I hired through a service some nurses to come by for 24 hours for the first 3 days. And, they cost about $20 an hour. Well, think about how much that is. $20 an hour, 24 hours, 3 straight days. It gets real expensive really fast. And then in my situation, turned out that we needed much more care than that. My father was a bigger guy, and changing his diaper wasn't a one-person job. So these expenses that you have not probably budgeted for, especially if you have kids, it just adds up so quickly. And then what this study points out is that folks are often not taking on more work responsibility, so they're cutting back their hours. And that was the case with me. I had a young kid at home. It was the COVID pandemic, and my dad needed a lot of help. So I didn't rush to go back to work after my maternity leave. I couldn't.
Yeah. Jason, professional care, whether it's in a residential facility or in a home, is pretty expensive, right? I mean, is that a big reason why we are seeing so many family caregivers in this country?
There's a number of reasons that contribute to family care and the demand for family care. One certainly is the expensive and often inaccessible institutional care that many folks need. So it costs on average $100,000 a year to put a loved one in a nursing home. And that often is just out of reach for millions of Floridians and Americans across the country.
Yeah.
We also see a growing number of folks who are aging. And at the same time, our health spans are not matching our lifespans. And so folks are aging longer in poorer health, requiring more support from family members and friends. So there's a number of shifting dynamics that contribute to that growth of nearly 50% of family caregivers in this country between 2015 and 2025.
Let me just go back to that number, though, that $100,000 figure. I mean, and you're saying that's the average? And
that's the average cost of nursing home care in this country.
In terms of quality, what's $100,000 getting you? Is that a high-quality experience for a loved one, or is it kind of, like, what would it be like?
It really depends on where you live. Right. So that's the thing. Quality really varies across states. And that's the other thing that really influences the quality of care, the supports, the experiences of family caregivers like Lauren are really shaped by state-based policies. So, for example, Florida is one of the states that, while has the third highest population in terms of family caregivers, is one of the states that spends the least in terms of home and community-based services. Services that help people like Lauren keep family members in the home, being able to access home health aides, for example, and paid support, able to access things like respite care and home delivered meals. So really, it's those investments that are shaped by state policies that make care easier or harder across the country.
I want to ask about respite care too. Mary Anna, is that what Lauren was describing, which is bringing somebody in for a few days to kind of give you a break, or is it kind of putting somebody in a facility, like sending them somewhere where they can be taken care of kind of 24/7 with wraparound services?
Yeah, so respite care provides temporary relief for family caregivers by offering short-term care for a person with disabilities or an elderly individual. So it could be in-home care, adult daycare centers, or even a short stay in a care home. And its purpose is essentially to prevent caregiver burnout, reduce stress, and improve caregiver and recipient well-being. So it's to give them a break.
Yeah. The number is 813-755-6562. If you want to share your experience of caregiving, if you've got questions for our panel or some thoughts on help that is out there, 813-755-6562. Lauren, what about that burnout? I mean, at the end of that, I mean, how did that kind of feel for you?
Yeah, I did definitely have a sense of burnout and a sense of failure. I really wanted my dad to be able to live at home again, and I was sort of in denial about his ability to do that. And it was really sad, talking about him not having these memories with my son. It was devastating to not have him be able to make it at home and have to have him back in a facility. Eventually, that was what we had to do. And I did have definitely caregiver burnout. And one of the things that compounded that for me was so few people I knew were going through that. I was in my 30s, and most of my friends had both parents, and no one was caregiving for an elderly parent. And I had friends I could talk to about it, but no one really understood what I was going through.
Yeah,
And
you got to live it to understand.
yeah, a lot of people, and reading this study, a lot of caregivers also just feel really alone in what they're doing.
Yeah, let's get on, go to the phones, I should say. Jean is on the line. Jean, what are you thinking? What's your experience?
Hi, I'm here in Tampa Bay, and I just wanted to point out that I got long-term care 15 years ago when I saw the writing on the wall. We've been 30 years out with nursing shortage, so I knew that no one's going to be able to change my diapers. So I got long-term care for myself and my oldest brother, who's 70 now, and my power of attorney brother for him decided to stop paying on it. And here he is now complaining about having to care for his own brother and get diapers for him. Had he kept the payments were consistent from 40 to 70, same amount every month, it never changes. Doesn't matter if your health changes or not, you just keep a rider on it. The other thing people aren't talking about is in the homeless shelters. I'm hitting the homeless shelter for the first time last night, and 1/3 or almost a third of the people there are all hospice. They're all older seniors who can't care for themselves.
Wow.
And that's the Catholic, that's the Catholic Church taking care of these people at the shelter that I'm at.
Right. So bottom line, Jean, is you'd say kind of make an investment in your own care if you can, like if you have the financial resources while you can ahead of time.
I do right now. I pay long-term care. I pay $129 or 100, and the other one is like 29 for short-term. So that's 3 months. Long-term is for 3 to 4 years. I put a rider on it for inflation. I'm covered. I don't have any children, and I planned on it that way. I was the youngest of 10.
Jean, thank you so much for those insights. Really appreciate it. Let's go back to the phones. Got another call coming in from Deanna. Deanna, I believe you're a hospice intern. Is that right?
Yes, I'm a hospice social work intern, and I've been kind of actually researching like caregiver burnout, and I was hoping to implement some kind of caregiver group, but there's so many barriers. Like most caregivers are too busy to be involved, and just like what would be the best to help them and assist them, I guess more from the social work side of things.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. One more call, and then we'll try and answer that if we could. Mary is on the line. Mary, you've got a question too, I think.
Yes, I do. I was wondering if any states in the United States obligate children to take care of their parents. I'm in Florida, but I heard that some states require it.
Okay. Mary, thank you for your question. I appreciate that. So let me put a couple of those points to you. Mariana, what are you thinking? I mean, hearing from our hospice intern there, Deanna, question about sort of helping caregivers. What advice could you give?
Yeah, so in the conversation about having a support group, AARP actually does have a support group that some caregivers can join. It's called AARP's Family Caregivers Discussion Group. It's on Facebook, and it essentially brings caregivers together nationwide, not just in Florida, all over the country and the territories, to share tips and offer support and connect with others who understand the journey. So if that's a really great way to direct some of the caregivers that you encounter, direct them to that group if you're unable to form one yourself, because it's at least a digital place where they can hear each other's stories and find support from their fellow caregivers.
Yeah. And Jason, I wonder if you could take that question we had from Mary about, are children obliged to take care of their parents in Florida?
No, I'm not aware of any state that requires, mandates care across any kind of relationship. And so I do think, though, there are, definitely state policy decisions around what kind of services are mandated. So, for example, home and community-based services are optional services through Medicaid. In a place like California, there are mandates around, needing to offer home and community-based services at the state level. So there are certainly some policies that make it easier or harder to care at the state level, but none that require kind of familiar exchanges of care.
Yeah. We're going to have to leave the conversation there, but I really appreciate the insights we've had from all of our guests. We've been speaking with Jason Resendez, CEO of the National Alliance for Caregiving. Also with us, Mary Anna Antoldi, Associate State Director of Communications with AARP, and Lauren Klinger, author of Learn From My Mistakes, a Substack newsletter about caregiving. Thank you all so very much. Well, still to come on Florida Matters Live and Local. Lace up your skates, we're talking sports with WUSF's Sky LeBron. That's coming up next on Florida Matters Live and Local. Stay with us.
Sarasota Contemporary Dance kicks off their 20th season, Mi Amor, with Yaya Diamond and the Dream Chasers, featuring the essence of funk, groove, and boogie December 4th through the 7th at the FSU Center. Tickets at sarasotacontemporarydance.org.
I'm Scott Tong. The new film explores George Orwell's life. His 1984 warns of authoritarianism and thought control.
Freedom is slavery. War is peace. Ignorance is strength.
Does Orwell have a warning for today's world? Next time, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
I'm Zalia Colon, and here's what's cooking on WUSF's food podcast, The Zest.
People usually get like some little salad or like a wrap or something like this. I cannot function with just a wrap and a little salad. I really need like my beans and my rice and my, everything to go through the day.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts or at thezestpodcast.com.
Connect to the greater Tampa Bay region first thing weekday mornings with Wake Up Call from WUSF. Local news, events info, culture, and more. Sign up for your wake-up call today at WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, last night the Tampa Bay Lightning faced off against the New York Rangers, and the game started with a blizzard of goals, including this one from Lightning left winger Jake Guentzel.
Jake Guentzel with a shorthanded goal as the Lightning won't go away here in the first.
Again, incredible athleticism to take a pass into his skates. We saw one earlier in the game. This one, he takes off his skates, goes between his legs, and now it's he and the goaltender. And he lures Shesterkin into this play by going forehand, backhand. And as the great Mary Lemieux used to say, open up the old garage door.
Well, that game, unfortunately, for Lightning fans, didn't go the way they would have liked. 7-3 to the Rangers in the end. With us to talk hockey and other Tampa Bay sports, WUSF Sky LeBron. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
All right, so Lightning, how are they doing this season? They had a bit of a shaky start, but are they back on track now?
So, the record says 8-6-2. That means they're technically 8-8. Those two losses that come in overtime still give you some points for the playoffs. And the Lightning trying to make the playoffs now for the 9th year in a row. Matt, the record isn't pretty right now, considering the standard that's been set for the Lightning, especially over the last decade and a half. It's pretty mediocre, but considering how they started the season, I think Lightning fans are actually pretty okay with where they're at right now. They started the season 1-4-2, so lost 6 of their first 7 games. It was one of the worst starts for the Bolts in recent memory, and they were bad in a lot of categories that they're usually good at. We're talking the defense was really sloppy. They were giving up big-time leads. They'd go long stretches without taking any shots at all. Since the end of October, that's changed, though. Despite the loss last night, they're still 7-2 in the last 9 games. The offense and defense and the energy for the team has really started to come around. And then a star player, like your best players, like Nikita Kucherov, is starting to pick things up. And the guy you just heard that piece of sound from Jake Guentzel, their center and point leader, he's been playing great as well.
Yeah, I was reading a profile of the goalie. It sounds like he's kind of getting up in years a little bit, and that's a tough job, right? You're taking a lot of knocks as a goalie, so some of these players maybe sort of having to nurse themselves through injuries a wee bit.
Oh, big time. Well, the goalies are always getting bashed into. On top of that, Vasilevsky's been around for a while, but man, he's been one of the best goalies for a really long time too. And this is a team that's been dealing with a ton of injuries. Right now, there's 7 players that are on the injury report. We're talking important players, too, like Victor Hedman, Brendan Hagel, Anthony Cirelli. Despite that, the team, apart from last night, have found ways to still win. But I think it's going to take some more time for the fan base to completely know what they have in this team this year until they start to get a little bit more healthy.
New owners too. I mean, imagine if you've just bought a hockey team and you're kind of seeing them like give up good leads, as you say, and sort of go through these injury woes and just not kind of get off to a smooth start. You may be thinking, did I make the right decision buying this team?
Yeah, but it's so early, Matt. You know, it's an 82-game season. They're 16 games into the season. So I think considering the injuries, they got to be feeling pretty optimistic. Now, has anything been run differently? I haven't noticed anything major. I could be wrong because I haven't followed the day-to-day operations of the team. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure if you're a hardcore Bolts fan, you've maybe noticed some changes in how things are running. But this offseason was still a pretty productive one for the Lightning, and they were able to retain some important players as they try to make another run for the Cup. So switching to this big billionaire group for the majority stake doesn't seem like it's had any major implications just yet.
Now, there is another hockey team in Florida.
Really?
I keep seeing stickers on the backs of people's cars as I'm driving into work. The Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
A couple of preseason games landed Lightning players and the coach with thousands of dollars in fines. A reporter for The Guardian described those games as 3-hour fever dreams of violence and all-out bedlam before the season even began. So a little rough around the edges. Tell me about that. Why is this rivalry so bitter between these two teams?
Ain't that hockey, though? Just 3 hours of violence a lot of the time. What happened in the preseason is just an extension of what happened in last year's regular season and the postseason as well. There are a few straight-up dirty hits on both sides, particularly in last year's first-round series between the Panthers and Lightning. The Lightning would say it was only a response to what the Panthers did. The Cats would definitely disagree with that. These two teams don't like each other, at all, especially in recent years since the Panthers became kind of, I don't want to say equal just yet because the Lightning still have more championships, but became something that the Lightning had to worry about year to year. And they'll straight up say it. They don't like each other. And that's kind of what I love about this rivalry. You see a lot of sports teams are like, well, I have respect for this team. Or no, a lot of these players on both sides don't really respect each other.
Right. Gloves off for these two teams.
Yeah. And you'll straight up, 100%. You'll penalize yourself and fight a guy, and you're going to be applauded for it in this particular matchup because it's sending a message to the opposite side. There's also just the fact that on the way to their championships, the Panthers have beaten the Lightning in the first round, not just last year, but the last 2 years now. And it hasn't been very close. It's been pretty lopsided in favor of the Panthers. So the bad blood is alive and well, and honestly, for entertainment value, this is great stuff for both sides. Plus, these two teams play on Saturday. It's a road game for the Lightning. It's over in Broward County. So we'll get the next chapter in that rivalry, and I'm excited for that.
So just kind of to wrap up the hockey talk for a moment, I mean, it seems like Tampa Bay Lightning have had a few woes this season so far. It's early in the season, though. They've still got a lot of games to go. They could still be a Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, definitely. I think in order to make that judgment, like I had said before, they have to get healthy. That's the main thing. And look, this team that won the last two Stanley Cups, the Florida Panthers, they're one of the Bolts' arch rivals. They're also really struggling out of the gate. Some of that could be attributed to a championship hangover, as we see a lot of teams that have just won big time.
They just take their foot off the gas.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's hard to have that same get up, that same drive. But right now, you look at the Lightning. They're 8-6-2. The Panthers are 8-7-1. So pretty much the same record. They're behind the Lightning in the standings, and they don't have nearly the injury concerns that Tampa has right now. So
yeah, both teams are kind of in the middle of their groups. Right?
Exactly, and you're feeling good if you're the Lightning. You have a bunch of injuries, and you've still been able to remain afloat as opposed to the Panthers, who have kind of struggled without those same concerns.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with WSF Sky LeBron about some Tampa Bay sports. Now the other winter sport, football. We talked about the USF Bulls about a month ago on Florida Matters Live and Local. Let's rewind the clock a wee bit, though. Here's USF upsetting the Gators in Gainesville, the Swamp, at the start of September.
Dramatica for the win, and there it is. 18-16, the final score, and the Bulls explode off the bench. We thought the Bulls had a statement win last Thursday night in their opener. This is their statement.
This ain't the same old South Florida, my brother.
All right, not the same old South Florida. It's quite a kind of epic win there a few months ago.
Epic
now.
music, too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely worth celebrating because that kind of is a place to win against UF, right, in their home territory in the swamp, amid all those fans.
Yeah, arguably that's going to go down as, at least as of right now, the biggest win in USF's history. They'd never beaten the Gators before. There's a video that went a little viral of the coaching staff coming out of the coaches' boxes after the game-winning field goal, and they're jumping up and down, and they're so happy. And it's such a dichotomy because you see the Florida coaches walking out at the same time. They look absolutely heartbroken. Now in retrospect, the Gators are not a good team this year. They already fired their head coach. But it was still big in the aspect of the little brother in the state, USF, finally overcoming what's been considered historically the best program, one of the best programs in the country, not saying lately, but historically, and definitely one of the premier programs in the state.
So now a couple months in, like how is the Bulls looking? Are they
Well, they've had a couple of blips. They lost to Miami. At the time, Miami looked like one of the best teams in the country. They've kind of struggled a little bit later in their schedule. Plus, the Bulls recently lost in kind of a collapse to the Memphis Tigers. That's what knocked them out of the top 25 rankings. But now they're back. They're number 24. Apart from those two games, they've largely beat down on everyone else that they played. And if the Bulls were to win out, that includes winning the conference championship, then they're a lock for the playoffs as that one group of 5 team, that one group of 6 team to make it to the playoff, which would be huge for the school.
Yeah, lots to watch there. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 6-3, first in their division. They've got some injury concerns, though, too. I feel like we talk about this every time we talk sports, Sky, but fill us in for those of us who don't follow the game day to day. Bucky Irving's been out since week 5 with shoulder, foot, ankle injuries, probably some others too I'm not including there, but what's going on with him?
Yeah, Bucky Irving has been dealing with a bunch of injuries. He hasn't played in over a month now. He was awesome last year as a rookie or as just a very young player. Receiver Mike Evans is most likely out for the rest of the season. He got a broken collarbone, a Bucs legend. His counterpart, Chris Godwin, has played in just 2 games this season, has just 6 catches because he's been dealing with a leg injury. This team feels like it's been severely injured since last season, and nothing really changed going into this season. The offensive line has gotten a little bit healthier, but quarterback Baker Mayfield has started to struggle a little bit more without his main playmakers. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. And we saw some of that last weekend versus the Patriots, and we could potentially see it again when they play the Bulls this weekend.
Yeah, and who do you think is going to kind of make up those players? Like, who's going to play in their places? What can we expect to see in the next game?
Well, at running back right now, they have Rashad White, who's been a long time with the team. Sean Tucker is there. He's been doing pretty good, even though neither of them is Bucky Irving. You look at the rookie receiver, Emeka Egbuka, and he's been awesome this year, just absolutely incredible. The problem is that teams are starting to hone in on him. And this year he was supposed to be the number 3 receiver. He wasn't supposed to be the top guy for the Bucs. Tez Johnson is another guy we have to mention. He was a 7th-round pick, picked on the last day of the draft this year, and he's really had to step up. He's another rookie who's gotten a lot more playing time. But that just shows how injured this team is. They're relying on 2 rookies to be Mayfield's top targets, and sometimes it works because you got Baker Mayfield, and he's awesome. Sometimes, though, it's not going to be good enough to get it done, and I guess we're going to find out over the next 5-6 weeks. I still think the Bucs have a very good chance of winning their division because it's a weak division. But sustainability in the playoffs, can they get healthy before the games start to really, really, really matter?
WSF's Sky LeBron, you can hear him hosting the Bay Blend, WSF's podcast, serving up shots of news, culture, and entertainment every weekday. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Sky.
Thanks.
Well, coming up next week on Florida Matters Live and Local, nearly half of Floridians are thinking of fleeing the Sunshine State. That's according to a recent study. The rising cost of living, including home prices and insurance, as people are thinking about leaving Florida. If you're one of them and you would like to talk to us about it, give us a call, 813-755-6562. You can leave us a message. You can also email floridamatters@wsf.org, and we'll talk about it next week. That's our show for today. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Emily Horace. Lily Belcher is our intern. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Galvin. And Jackson composes our theme music. Malika Hollis handled the video today. You can subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for listening and watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.